hospitals in southwestern Ontario tell us who is affected by the cyber attack as more data is released by hackers. And as Windsor deals with a rash of car thefts, this man tells us how he was able to recover his stolen vehicle hours after noticing it was gone. And Unifor reaches a deal with automaker Stellantis. We break down those details tonight. Some breaking news to share this hour. Unifor says that their employees have accepted that newly negotiated contract with Stellantis. This deal approved by 60% of production and skilled trade workers at plants in Brampton and here in Windsor. There's some big news inside of this agreement. The company confirming for the first time what vehicles will be made in Windsor and Brampton moving forward. Windsor will continue to build the Chrysler Pacifica, but it will now be home to the next generation of Dodge muscle cars. And when Brampton finishes the retooling process in 2025, they'll start building the next generation of the Jeep Compass. This deal follows the pattern that was set with Ford and General Motors. Most employees will see close to a 20% raise over 3 years, and full-time employees are going to get a $10,000 signing bonus. This deal also sees big jumps in the way that employees are paid during layoff periods or downtime. A laid-off auto worker with Stellantis will now make 70% of their full wage. That new deal means an auto worker on layoff will make $1,200 a week, according to the union. Hospitals in southwestern Ontario hit by a ransom attack are sharing new details today on what data has been exposed and how much of it. It's now been 2 weeks since the cyber attack took hospitals in Windsor, Essex, Chatham, Kent, and Sarnia offline. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa continues to cover the story for us. Thanks for joining us, Jen. What exactly is out there and how much of it?
Yeah, so I mean, the information that was stolen across the hospitals is all different, Chris. Overall, though, what we know is that all the hospitals have had some amount of patient and employee information stolen. Some are more severely impacted than others. So for certain facilities, it's a lot of patient health records. Others, it's employee social insurance numbers. None have had banking information stolen. There's a lot to know here, so we're going to break it down by hospital. We'll start with Blue Water Health in Sarnia. They've had the most information stolen. A patient database was taken. That includes records from 5.6 million visits from 267,000 patients. This doesn't include any sort of clinical documents. They say some staff information was taken, but that it doesn't include any social insurance numbers. Now we're going to go to Chatham Kent Health Alliance. They say that some patient information was impacted. They're still looking into what exactly. An employee database was also taken. That had information about more than 1,400 people who started working at the hospital as of February 2nd, 2021. They say information like names, addresses, and SINs were taken. Erie Shores Healthcare in Leamington, some patient information was stolen there. They're still looking into what exactly. More than 350 current and past employee SINs were taken from there. Windsor Regional Hospital, they say that patient information has been stolen there as well. People were identified by their names and medical conditions. Some employee information was also impacted, but that doesn't include SIN or banking information. And then Hotel du Grace Healthcare. Some patient information was impacted there. They're still looking into that. They also say employee information was taken, but not any SINs. So all of the hospitals have provided 2 years of credit monitoring for their staff. They say that they're still working to investigate the stolen data to figure out who was impacted, adding that they will be contacting those people directly. In the joint statement, the hospitals also said that they're committed to transparency and will provide regular updates in the coming days. They hope to have a timeline on when operations are going to be restored. We also heard from the Minister of Health on this today. Here's what they had to say.
Without a doubt, we are very concerned when any type of patient access is compromised, and we continue to support those hospitals to make sure that as they work through finding out exactly where the breach was and working with ensuring that that doesn't happen again.
So the hospitals have also created a cybersecurity hotline. For questions, people can call 519-437-6212. Staff at the facilities are encouraged to speak with HR teams. They also, once again, apologized for this incident.
Now, Jen, speaking of questions, all throughout this process, you've been asking experts what's been going on there. What do they have to say about this recent development?
So I've been speaking with one expert from the University of Toronto specifically about this, and he said that, while it's good news that not everyone from these facilities has been impacted, we've still had more communication from the hospitals and the governments over these last 2 weeks. He says all of this is still not enough.
What we're seeing here is a lot of platitudes being spoken by government officials, but no real plan of action. And as well, what we really need here are changes on the law to give some teeth to the authorities and to really make it easier to pursue remedies to help victims of privacy attacks. And right now we have no plan and no course of action being offered by the Ministry of Health.
He says what is unfolded here is likely a signal of what's to come at other institutions in the future, so we need to be better prepared at addressing these sorts of issues.
Certainly a lot of lessons to be learned here. Thanks for this, Jen. CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa, live tonight. Police are warning people about a string of car thefts and attempted car robberies this weekend. Well, one Windsor man is thanking a small piece of technology after getting his car back. The CBC's TJ Deer reports.
Samer Mansour left the windows down on his 2002 BMW 325 Ci on Saturday during a frantic day involving a family emergency. He believes that mistake allowed thieves to steal his car on Sunday from the driveway of his brother's house in South Windsor.
Certainly a lapse of judgment and, carelessness on my part for sure.
Inside were valuables such as passports, cell phones, insurance documents, and credit cards. But Mansour's car had an AirTag synced with an app designed to locate it. He tracked the car to this nearby motel. Mansour says after investigating with a motel staff member, they found that the 4 people involved had been staying there for 3 weeks. Mansour called police, who told him they handcuffed the 4 people and led them into the motel hallway. He got his car back undamaged the same day, but some of the valuables were still missing. But this isn't the only car theft that happened over the weekend. Windsor police say a suspect made 2 car thefts and attempted 2 more between 3:30 a.m. on Saturday and 3 a.m. on Sunday. The suspect is described by police as a black man around 30 years old, standing 5'6" with a heavy build, wearing a green hooded sweatshirt and a black medical mask. Police say a light gray van is believed to have been driven by an accomplice. Some Windsor residents say they're now worried about the safety of their car, especially since one of the attempted car thefts happened at a local drive-thru.
After seeing this, I have to make sure that I keep my windows up all the time. And if somebody is knocking, I will be afraid of, even somebody if is in need, I'll be afraid of helping him now.
My neighbor got his car jacked just a little, literally yesterday. It's kind of nerve-wracking to get a car nowadays on top, because it's just happening so often.
Windsor police declined an interview request and didn't respond to questions asked by CBC News. But for Mansour, the experience has been a wake-up call.
Maybe if a year or 2 ago I would just leave everything open, not really worry about stuff, but now I'm definitely going to be more careful.
TJ Deer, CBC News, Windsor.
International students in Windsor, Essex are desperate to find work. It's an issue that our newsroom is once again turning attention to. The CBC's Kathleen Saylor's joining us here today. Kathleen, this story here, where does it all start? There's a picture that we saw?
Yeah, so recently we saw dozens of people line up outside a downtown LCBO. Take a look at this. These people weren't there to shop. They were actually there for job interviews. 2 people in line told us that they are international students. They're looking for the jobs that they need to make it through the school year.
It is very important. I guess in my course, half of the students are on loan here. They took a loan and then they came here. So I guess paying their rents and for food, also for the fees, it is very important to get a job.
Cardi says she's been applying online and in person, but it's hard. And another student we spoke with says that he's handed out 60 or more resumes. We know this isn't a one-off. In September, hundreds of people were lined up for a handful of positions at Namaste Indian Supermarket.
Clearly the demand there for work, 60 resumes. Do we know why this is happening?
It's pretty much always been the case that students need to work, but international students face extra challenges. There's a lot they have to get used to when they arrive in Canada. Pat Papadeus is the Director of Academic Operations with St. Clair College. While they don't differentiate between international and domestic students who are looking for work, she says that international students may not be as aware of some of the career services at the college, and that's because of how much new information they get when coming to school. She says there's also the issue of so-called soft skills, like building a good resume or preparing for interviews.
we don't differentiate between our domestic students needing job search support and our international students. I think what might be particular about international students is, particularly when they arrive, the orientation that we have so much information, they may not actually be really know what services and supports there are at that early time, which is why, for example, Kathleen, we had a part-time job fair in September, and not only to bring the employers onto our campus and connect them with students where they're looking to fill part-time jobs, but also to promote the fact that career services is there for those students.
She says that St. Clair College has the resources to help with those soft skills in their Career Services Center. But we also know that Windsor is booming, signaling a need for more people to fill those openings. The Windsor Chamber of Commerce says we've benefited from the number of international students here. Rakesh Naidu is the president of the chamber, and he says that now the challenge is keeping newcomers here. They proposed some changes that would make international students eligible for the Canada Summer Jobs Program. He says he knows employers that weren't able to attract the student talent they needed last summer.
See, Kathleen, thanks for this. CBC's Kathleen Sailors. New numbers from Stats Canada shows that people in Windsor are having a hard time making ends meet. CBC's Dale Molnar has more.
Statistics Canada surveyed people in 20 cities across Canada. Windsor ranks the second highest when it comes to feeling that it's difficult or very difficult to make ends meet. And some are pointing to the high cost of food.
Prices have gone up, even for bread. A lot of the bread I buy has to be vegan, can have certain items in it. Different things. I have to buy a lot of supplements to help with my diet because of what I eat. I supplement a lot. But even anything from toilet paper, paper towel, even bottled water.
Well, I find good quality meat, poultry, especially meats like lamb, stuff like that. We used to buy at great prices. Now I find it really hard to find.
According to the survey, 26.7% of people in the Windsor area say it's difficult to make ends meet. 14.3% say it's very difficult, well above the national average. The head of the UHC Hub of Opportunity is not surprised. She says 30% of the people coming to the food bank this year were first-time users.
They're looking for affordable housing, food insecurity. Food inflation is higher than inflation. So we are seeing people that are employed. 8% of people that we are serving are employed. 20% of people that we are seeing visiting our food bank are here because food inflation is hit all-time records. They can't afford to purchase food. They've identified that they cannot make ends meet, that they need to access a food bank.
She says high interest rates are also a factor. Consultant Fraser Fathers says one shouldn't jump to conclusions from the survey. The terms difficult and very difficult are subjective. But he says since many of the cities at the top of the list are from southwestern Ontario, it does show how people here feel.
This is giving us also a snapshot of maybe the economy and maybe how people are feeling, or the pinches of high inflation or higher prices in certain areas are impacting southwestern Ontario more than maybe other parts of the country.
Meanwhile, the UHC Hub of Opportunity expects to end up serving more people at the food bank this year compared to last year. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's motion to exempt all home heating from carbon tax was defeated in a vote today.
Yeas pour 135, 135. Nays contre 186, 186.
The vote tally was 135 yeas, 186 nays. Most of the New Democrats had voted with Conservatives to support the non-binding motion, but Bloc Québécois and Green MPs sided with the Liberals to strike it down. As of today, the latest fighting in Gaza has been going on for 1 month, and it is now the deadliest in the history of Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. The heaviest bombardments of the Israeli campaign came overnight, and Gaza's health ministry says more than 10,000 people in the territory have been killed in the fighting. Israel's military says it has cut the Gaza Strip in half and says its forces have surrounded the heart of the Hamas military wing in Gaza City. Ground troops are expected to be in the city's center within 2 days. For Windsor residents with connections to Gaza, it's becoming difficult to find out if their friends, if their family are safe.
I just follow the news every day, looking for my phone if they give me any heads up what's happening with them, if they are still alive or not. Because as you know, Israel cut even the communication with them.
Last week, a lot of houses around my dad's house were bombed. And then my family sent me a video of, when they were evacuating. They were running away now from my dad's house. A lot of people, I have some family members who are in the open air. We have other family members who are in the hospitals, taking shelter in the hospitals, but nowhere is safe.
It's not just people with connections to Gaza who are feeling the impacts of the war. The Windsor Jewish Federation and Community Center welcomed an Israeli family to the city at an event at the community center last Monday, but mom and dad haven't told their kids why they're here.
We are not informed them so much, so they doesn't know and understand why we are doing this. And generally, they understand, okay, in Israel there is a war, you're trying to start a new life, that's it. Not easy for them because actually everything is new. The language, the weather, the people, everything. So we need to find a solution also for them.
We take a live look outside now where it is dark. The clock's changed, and with that, our walk home gets a little bit darker and the mornings are changing too. We will deal with all of that as it comes. Colette Kennedy with a look at the forecast after the break. And joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. My favorite part of coming back inside of this chair is when you explain things I never understand.
I don't know if I can do that, Chris.
This daylight saving time thing, you got the sun behind you. I look outside,
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. We're the big shift. The sunrise, the sunset. What are we seeing here over the next little bit here? The basics of it.
I'm glad we're sticking with weather in terms of what I need to explain, because maybe that's one area I'm a little bit comfortable with. Yeah, we all kind of notice, well, kind of, you can't help but notice it gets dark earlier, right? Now, we do get the sun a little bit earlier with the time change, but it's really into those afternoons and evenings where it becomes more difficult. So your sunrise tomorrow, 7:12. Sunset tomorrow is going to be at 5:18, okay? And for our current temperatures, boy, not surprising when we had those wind gusts up over 60 kilometers an hour at times, that it helped from the south to push our temperature up there to 17 degrees. And now we've just dropped back a little bit, so putting us at 16. And that mild air into this warm front, the wind gusts not as strong now as what they were through the afternoon hours. And with some of that wet weather, of course, thunderstorm activity too, a lot of lightning strikes that were kind of raced through, much of that sort of to the north of the Windsor area. But still, we've had that kind of activity, and it's going to be kind of one system after another. And so with that, eventually, we're going to see some of that cooler air begin to kind of filter its way in, but it's going to take time. So we're quite mild through the overnight, and then tomorrow, and then it's really tomorrow night, then things start to come down, but not for long, because then the next system is going to be making its way in. Yes, you're seeing correctly. We have thunderstorms, summer-like weather to the south with this system, but to the north, it's a mix, and then even some heavier snowfall. Okay, that's well to the north. So there are actually two cold fronts associated with this. The cooler air filters in. Even though we get some breaks developing here through the evening and overnight, the cloud deck fills back in, so that it's primarily going to be overcast through the day on Tuesday, and then on Tuesday night, just as we're trying to clear again, the next system starting to work its way in for Wednesday. Watch out with this one if you're going to be traveling, because with the cooler air and the moisture, until the temperatures rise to push this all to rain, Sarnia, London areas, maybe Chatham, Kent, I think it'll still stay to the north, could see a little bit of light mixed precipitation, or even a bit of, light snow before it changes to that mix. And then, of course, it does fill in as rain showers, because those temperatures will be coming up as they are through the overnight. Look at those readings. It's not till we get towards tomorrow morning, and then we're still going to be close to double digits, and we'll kind of come up a degree or two, but sort of hover around that area. I put us up to 11 with the overcast conditions. Yes, it's rain showers for Windsor and Leamington, but be aware travelers could get some nastier weather into the afternoon, and then we do the little bit of this and that through the rest of the week in terms of those temperatures. Did I explain that well? A little this and that?
Perfect. This and that. That's as defined as we need to get there,
Yes,
Colette.
those are meteorological terms.
I see. I remember we put those in the dictionary, right? It's Riz, this, that. I think that was 2023
And the other.
words.
Don't forget the other.
Thanks, Colette.
Yeah.
After the break, we are going to take a look at new research that shows just how effective virtual urgent care was during the pandemic. Donald Trump testified under oath today at his high-profile civil trial in New York. The former U.S. president and leading Republican presidential candidate is accused of using questionable accounting practices to inflate the value of his properties. But Trump and the New York Attorney General who brought the case against him commented on their way out of court.
See what a scam this is? This is a case that should have never been brought. It's a case that should be dismissed immediately.
At the end of the day, the documentary evidence demonstrated that, in fact, he falsely inflated his assets to basically enrich himself and his family.
Trump calling for the case to be dismissed there. Trump was pressed about the values of his properties and his role in the appraisals. The testimony, it got off to a contentious start with a judge admonishing Trump to keep his answers concise. Next to testify will be Trump's daughter, Ivanka, on Wednesday. There's new research on the impact of virtual urgent care during the pandemic. The Canadian Medical Association Journal looked at whether having remote access to doctors reduced the pressure on hospital emergency rooms. And as CBC's Tashana Reed tells us, the research shows not really.
There were 3 patients that did end up needing to go to the ED.
At this Toronto hospital, Dr. Justin Hall checks in with a staff member from the virtual emergency department.
This is a great service for those who have minor injuries, minor skin conditions.
And put your finger. The online service started during the pandemic with emergency physicians. Now it's led by nurse practitioners with support from doctors.
We are not a solution to the primary care crisis. We are, however, a way of bridging the gap.
Emergency rooms across the country are under pressure and face staffing shortages and closures. But a new study suggests those virtual appointments had little effect on how many patients showed up in person at the ER. Researchers looked at data from more than 19,000 patients in Ontario who had a phone or video call with a healthcare provider during the pandemic.
Many of these patients had visits on the same day with another healthcare provider.
Among those accessing virtual services the most, young adults in urban settings from high-income neighborhoods, and 85% already had a primary care provider.
In a system of strained resources, we can't afford to provide redundant care to a population that already has good access to care.
Health experts say virtual care is effective in some cases, such as for children and those living in rural or remote locations.
A fair number of the people who are coming to the emergency department don't have access to a family doctor, and so essentially they're using it for primary care.
Healthcare providers say virtual care is here to stay, and if used effectively, can play a critical role in helping Canadians get the care they need. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
And that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.